So The Substance was the unexpected toast of Cannes when it premiered there back in the spring. Critics hailed director Coralie Fargeat's maximalist take on body horror, with many praising the fearless lead performances from Demi and Margaret Qualley. I went into this one expecting a solid little horror satire, but I didn't expect that I'd be watching the greatest body horror movie made since the heyday of David Cronenberg, and I'm not even kidding. Fargeat's movie kicks off TIFF's Midnight Madness this year, and I have to say, how apropos, because this movie definitely puts the madness in Midnight Madness and might be the craziest movie that they've shown in a couple of years at least. So Fargeat's movie offers Demi one of the greatest and definitely most grotesque roles of her career. She plays Elizabeth Sparkle, a one-time movie star who's now best known for being the host of a popular morning workout show. On her birthday, she's fired, with the directive from her repulsive boss being that they need to hire someone young and fresh to take her place. Her boss is played by Dennis Quaid, and wow, you have never seen Dennis Quaid chew scenery like he does in this movie, but considering the kind of heightened vibe of the film, he really nails the assignment, and I have to say, Quaid is a hoot in this movie. So it's then that she's approached and given access to the substance, which offers her a Faustian bargain. If she injects the substance, a younger, more physically perfect version of herself will grow out of her body, and they will share the same consciousness. But the rule is that her younger version can only be sustained on her own for about a week at a time, at which point the older version of Elizabeth is in stasis. They share a consciousness, but the rule is that each version exists 1 week on and 1 week off. And if they violate this rule, which of course they soon do, the result is a complete and utter disaster. Now, at 140 minutes, The Substance is a slow burn as far as the horror aspect goes, with it more of a satire of Hollywood's preoccupation with youth. As Sue, the younger version of Elizabeth, Margaret Qualley is vivacious and easily manages to usurp Elizabeth's former fame when she goes to work at her old network. And I have to say, Margaret Qualley, especially in this movie, really does look like Demi circa St. Elmo's Fire. I mean, she looks absolutely stunning, but then again, Moore still looks really good too, at least before they start burying her in prosthetics, which point she looks a little less than her usual spectacular self, but I digress. So, despite sharing the same consciousness, the two halves of Elizabeth soon grow jealous of each other, with Sue attempting to take more ownership over her life and body. And the result is a physical and mental disaster for Elizabeth, who starts to resemble Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, with the prosthetic effects used impressively repulsive. And I mean, if this movie doesn't end up getting nominated for Best Makeup at the Academy Awards, then there's something very wrong, because it's unbelievable. So unlike David Cronenberg's body horror films, Fargeat is more invested in the satiric angle, with the core becoming so repulsive and over the top towards the end that the critics screening I attended grew increasingly raucous. People were laughing and cheering the crazier this movie got, and I have to say I was one of them. Older audiences drawn in by Demi Moore's presence, I want to be challenged by how out there this movie is. My mother, for one, was somebody who said that, she can't wait to see this movie because it's the new Demi Moore film. I think she might run from this movie theater if she was to happen to go see this film because, wow, it is crazy. But younger genre audiences are going to eat this up. It is a real hoot. Demi Moore, of course, is perfectly cast and certainly fearless in the lead. Still gorgeous at 62, Moore's casting is ingenious, as anyone who grew up in the 90s no doubt remembers how her body and beauty was something that the media was obsessed over. I mean, if anybody remembers the hubbub around striptease, leading into G.I. Jane and how her body changed between the two movies, as good as she's been in plenty of movies, Moore has never really held a role like this, which is kind of like a 21st century modern horror version of the types of roles once played by Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. This might be her Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The fact that Moore obviously still looks so flawless makes the whole caveat that the execs, like the one played by Quaid, think she's over the hill, somewhat of a gag unto itself. Certainly the character played by Quaid, who's not coincidentally named Harvey, a la Weinstein, but the real problem here is also shown to be Elizabeth's self-worth, which seems totally wrapped up in the adulation she receives from men and her once adoring public. Margaret Qualley, as the younger version of the character Sue, is similarly fearless, with her dazzling beauty nearly weaponized as Sue takes over Elizabeth's life. Qualley's one of those actresses that's always been nervy enough to deliver big performances without ever seeming self-conscious about her choices, no matter how they fare. I mean, a good example of this is the recent Drive Away Dolls. Was it a good movie? No, but Margaret Qualley was kind of awesome in it, right? I can't imagine anyone else pulling off the turn that she does here, with her and Moore perfectly complementing each other, despite rarely sharing the screen. Add to that the propulsive pace, with this being one of the most fast 140-minute movies I've ever seen. and the visual style. Fargeat, who kind of really burst onto the scene a couple of years ago with the movie Revenge, really kind of emerges here as one of the great new voices in horror. The Substance will be extremely controversial when it comes out because there really haven't been movies that have been this gory and this sexually provocative in a long time. But it is getting the ideal launching pad as the opening night movie at TIFF's Midnight Madness. This movie really does seem like a future midnight movie cult sensation, and Mubi, who picked this up at Cannes, likely have their biggest movie ever on their hands. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it becomes a major indie hit, and I'm shocked that a company like Neon or A24 didn't try to grab this one. But their loss is Mubi's gain, because I have to say The Substance is a jaw-dropper, and I give it a 9 out of 10. I had a blast.